Good afternoon, dear viewers. A good friend of mine gave me a video card AMD Radeon RX 470 with 4GB of video memory. I know you will watch this video. I want to say thank you for the card and the magnet. By the way, I thought to stick to the computer case, but then it turned out that I removed its side covers, so the magnet is on the fridge. But I didn't invent anything with the paper clips and gave them along with my own to a small expert who knows how to determine the type of paper clips by touching a closed pack. But back to the video card. While I was unpacking it, jumping around the room and screeching, cringe. In general, this is an Asus Strix 470, 6-pin power supply, RGB illumination of label, and now I take it in my hands and it seems that I had this card all my life. So it has these cult forms. But the question arose about how I'll put it in the micro ATX case. I had a 1030, which is 17 centimeters long, and it interfered with the hard disk connectors, and the RX is as much as 24. But everything worked out. I was able to put it in, with great difficulty, pre-connected power and removed the hard drive. Now my main HDD BlueX is just on the table, and on it is BADX, which works in the RAID with a laptop WD Blue LPCX, which found its place in the case. I have a computer on Xeon E5 2420 V2, which we tested in this video. It has 8 GB, 2 to 4 gigs Samsung DDR3 1600. And by the way, about the RAID. Here is data on the speed of hard drives, on the left, separately, on the right, in the RAID. Top indicators for empty disks, bottom, for 95% scored. This is how the speed of reading and writing on the remaining free space drops, provided that you only wrote to the disk, but did not delete anything from it. Before we start playing games, let's turn on auto acceleration for RX. To do this, in the Radeon settings, click overclocking GPU, and in a couple of seconds our card is already overclocked. If a sudden acceleration crashes, it will be possible to start from a pre-saved profile and we can save it like this. Another feature of this video card, with default settings MSI Afterburner doesn't display load of chip. To do this, just uncheck the box Allow low-level access to the GPU. Now the chip load will be displayed, but the card's power consumption will no longer be displayed. Games, finally. Today we will show such game settings that make it comfortable to play, and not the maximum possible FPS for a particular piece of hardware. Let's start with eSports. CSGO, Auto Maximum Settings. Instead of monitoring, we have running numbers in the corner. In dynamics on the train 140-150 frames, just when running on the map 180-200, with the emphasis on the map of course. I don't play Dota 2, so I didn't know until today what does dynamics mean. On the preset, the quality in the batch of FPS floats about 40, without dynamics about 80. Lowering the graphics settings gives us 100 and 110 FPS with one hero and creeps on the screen. I don't know if Roshan's murder can be considered dynamic. But here we have around 60 frames. I decided to make Warzone harder. The settings are like this. Near medium, I twisted them with my hands. When traveling by transport, the FPS ranges from 50 to 60 and we have peaks on the frame time. Why? We are running out of RAM, but we need to take into account that we have buffered shadows. Remove buffering and set the shadows to low, and then the peaks will disappear completely. The next game on the test is Fortnite. It is reasonable to choose the medium settings in it. The 3D resolution is 100%. And here we have 70-80 frames. High and ultra settings were automatically selected, but the game on them stuttered and sometimes gave out less than 50 frames, so the medium ones are just right. Let's move on from games that are the most fun to projects that are controversial in terms of performance. The first Battlefield, and I thought to remove vertical synchronization. Ultra preset settings. The most powerful effects do not drop the frame rate below 60. Loading of card strangely jumps. But you understand that if the card load was really there 2 or even 20%, we would not have a stable 60 frames on the screen right now. Better look at the frequency of the chip. 1276 MHz, so the card is working at 100%. Battlefield 5, high settings and rendering of subsequent frames is enabled, this is important. About 60 frames, and about the rendering of subsequent frames, I'll say this. Without it, the FPS here will be about 35-40, a useful button in general, but not in online games. Because of it, the input lag is growing. The game is great, I will not say for online, but most likely there will also be about 60 frames at medium or low-medium settings. Game, hung with all the achievements of the video card production, Control. Something in the area of medium settings. In Control, we get about 50 frames, and judging by the frequency of the map, the percentage does not load up. Loading of the processor is quite strange, on the 11th stream up to 90% loading, the rest plus or minus chill. Mortal Kombat 11 picked up these graphics settings, almost maximum. The processor in this game is resting, you can completely shift the processing of particles to it and make life easier for the video card just for fun. The trick is that the game cleverly skips frames and animations to maintain 60 frames. I didn't figure out how to disable this setting. Kingdom Come Deliverance, this game can't choose the most suitable textures by itself. All settings are average, except for the quality of objects, it is here on Ultra. And here we almost always have 60 frames, excellent textures despite the loading of 2 GB of video memory. And this game was called unoptimized? Finally this game will work for me. Assassin's Creed Unity. A 6-year game on high gives heat to my computer, the card works 100%, the processor load is never lower than half, but only about 4 GB of RAM are used. On the roofs we get 55-60 frames. In the crowd 45-50. Oversaturated at the time, the game still gives a lie to budget game builds. Need for Speed Heat, medium graphics settings. And with these settings, we get from 50 to 60 frames. The game sometimes stutters due to the fact that it uses a hard drive, in my case, 2 disks at once. And to be honest, the game looks like something shameful for the medium settings, some pixel sharpness. As if someone piled filters on Instagram. I went through this game at 1030 on the lowest in Full HD with a resolution scale of 9/10 and it was fine, but if I first saw the game as you see it on the screen, I would not even start playing. RX users, tell me, maybe something needs to be tweaked to be normal, there must be a way out. In fact, the car looks normal, cutscenes too, and the environment in the game is just tin. Here by the way a couple of photos with textures from Minecraft, and some strange leaves from the ground, which with the transition to Ultra becomes more. Far Cry 5 on medium graphics settings. 50-55 frames on average, and caught a small freeze at 33 frames, which I can't explain. At the time of the freeze, there was a drop in CPU utilization. I assume that the memory frequency of 1600 MHz is to blame for everything. This is not enough, as at one time computers with DDR2 800 did not show 60 FPS even in simple games for them. But on average, it comes out fine. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is freezing constantly. I know for sure that this is due to the low speed of RAM. Well, the dual-channel 1600 does not cope with this game, there are still a few background processes that fry the RAM, they cause the Alps on the frame time. The second Watch Dogs, high graphics settings. The game always complains that my processor is worse than the i5 2400S or the 6-core AMD FX. Well. This game in the city is given to our PC hard, the FPS is kept in the region of 30-35. It is clear that the focus is on the card, but if you set everything to low, there will be no more than 45 frames. Again, in the city. Outside the city, with any graphics settings on this PC, more than 60 frames per second. GTA 5, default near maximum settings without frame lock. From this segment of the video, draw your own conclusions, and I will tell you the general conclusion. RX 470 is an excellent video card that allows you to play all games at medium and high settings in Full HD. It has a low power consumption, It requires only 6 pins of additional power, and a small heating. In the open micro ATX case, I saw the maximum temperature of 72 degrees. In general, this is a straight top card for budget, small and energy-efficient systems, which has no analogs in price and power anymore. 570 requires 8-pin power supply, 1650, although it eats less, but the price bites. 1060 is too popular to be profitable. Besides, 3 gigs of video memory even for GTA 5 on Ultra is not enough, not to mention Warzone and Watch Dogs 2. We have already tested the processor in this video, and that with 1030, that with 470 it shows the same results and fulfills its $10 by 200%, and I generally took it for $7. Trick here is in RAM. 8 GB is still enough if you are not a user. Do not keep 20 tabs open in the Amigo browser, reset unnecessary game services and sit on the Windows 10 LTSC. But the 2-channel DDR3 itself outlives in principle. It is because of memory that short-term FPS drops occur, sometimes even below 30, but only in games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You saw for sure how I played Doom Eternal, that is, as a solid freeze, but in other games there are no such drops. So my advice to you, if you think about every $-2420 V2, 1356 and 2 planks of 4GB DDR3 1600 DCC, is perfect for 30 FPS gaming, and often for 60 FPS. If you always want 60 FPS, look in the direction of the 4-channel, 2011, for example, 2640 or 2650 Oregon 2011-3, the 2620 V3 and 4 to 4 gigs of any DDR4, which you can buy from Ryzen owners, who have freezes with this memory. If you need exactly 16 gigs of memory but do not need a 4-channel, the same 2640 and 2650 and an Ethermeter with 4 slots. Thank you all for watching and see you soon.